And now for something completely different. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Peridiam, and this might be the most random video topic I have ever covered on my channel. No, scratch that, it's definitely the most random. What in the world is a half Murphy juror? Stop making things up, Peridiam. Well, no, it's actually a real thing, and in this video, I plan to answer just that. What is it? Where did it get its name? How can you spot a half Murphy on your screen? And what do I think about this concept? So let's waste no time and get right into it. It is time to get meta. Now, depending on how you look at it and maybe who you're rooting for, the half Murphy juror is either really cringeworthy or exactly what you want. Here's the context. At the final tribal council, you have 2 or 3 finalists pitching their case for why they should be the sole survivor. 99% of the time, it is the finalist's job to build themselves up, to paint a cohesive narrative that will win enough jury members over to vote for them when it comes time to put pen to parchment. And so when a juror stands up to talk to the finalists or sits down in the latest format, a majority of the time, the jurors are looking for clarification or justification, or maybe even a little bit personal redemption, grilling the finalists or at least asking them a question or two. But what if we flipped that? What if instead of a juror asking the finalists a question, they talk to the jury? Not exactly sure what I mean? Enter David Murphy, stage left. Ladies and gentlemen, the half Murphy.
I'm not gonna ask you guys any questions. I'm not even gonna talk to you. I'm gonna talk to them. There's really only one logical decision here. Well, one person doesn't deserve it, so we can cut him off. The other one thanked somebody for doing it all. Who'd she thank? The guy sitting in the middle. He did everything.
For those who don't remember, David Murphy was a juror on season 22 Survivor Redemption Island, whereupon he stood up and instead of talking to Rob, Philip, or Natalie, he talked to the jury. He wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page. Rob was the best player. It's not even close. And how dare you for even thinking otherwise? I'm looking at you, Ralph. The half Murphy is named after David Murphy. Shocker. And that's what the half Murphy is. It's when a juror talks to the other jurors and basically wants them to all vote for the person that they are voting for. Whether or not they had these discussions back at Ponderosa before the final tribal council, the point is to kind of just get up on a stump, a soapbox, and preach to the high heavens in front of the Lord Jeff and all the cameras surrounding him. There is only one way to vote here tonight, and you better vote that way. Whether or not this juror has an impact on the other jurors isn't the point. The point is they will switch up the formula and try to push their agenda instead of the finalists doing it for themselves. Now, in the case of David Murphy, his half Murphy speech probably didn't have any impact whatsoever. Whether or not Boston Rob wins by a vote of 8-1 or 7-2, it was pretty clear cut from the beginning who was winning in that final 3. Heck, the episode of that finale was even titled "Seems Like a No-Brainer." Cheeky editors. So why is this speech called the half Murphy instead of, say, the full one? Is David only half of a man? Well, by the end of the reunion, that might actually... Never mind. The half Murphy term was coined, I believe, by former player Rob Sesternino on his podcast. The full Murphy, which is technically also a term, is when you not only make a proposal to the jury, you also then make a different kind of proposal at the live reunion show, if you catch my drift. In the case of David Murphy, he proposed to the first boot from Survivor Tocantins, Carolina Eastwood, literally getting down on his knees and asking her to marry him.
You challenge me.
Shut it down right now. Shut it down.
You drive me nuts, but at the end of the day, you've made me happier than I could ever ask to be. So will you marry me, please?
Shut the flipping front door. Survivor loves blindsiding me.
Yeah, that's the full Murphy. 2 proposals in one night. A half Murphy is just 1 proposal, and it's really just in front of the jury. Now, as far as I know, nobody has ever pulled off a full Murphy beyond the eponymous man himself, but many instances of the half Murphy do exist throughout the history of Survivor. I actually brought up a few of them in one of my previous series where I talked about the greatest jury speeches. Sue Hawk's famous speech from the very first season, the Snakes and Rats speech, is a bit of a half Murphy. Why not call it a half Hawk then if she did it first? Well, it's because David actually did kind of do it first. Sue had moments of a half Murphy in her speech, but the first half was her talking to Rich and Kelly, whereas the second half was her kind of talking to the jury, asking them to vote for Rich. And unlike David Murphy, Sue's speech actually did have some impact on the final vote, at least when Jervis references it as he votes for Kelly, stating how much he didn't care for what Sue had to say.
Sue's comments, that's what in my town we call a sore loser. Because when Sue was doing the backstabbing, the lying, and throwing the knives everywhere, she was happy. If she was sitting in Kelly's spot right now, she wouldn't be thinking about nothing about this $1 million, and that's it.
Another memorable example was Eric Cardona from Survivor Samoa when he went up and both spoke to the finalists as well as the jury about why Natalie White deserved to win just as much, if not more so, than Russell and Mick. Given that Eric does speak to the jury to some extent, I would classify this as a half Murphy speech, though again it's not as entirely direct as, say, David's was. David Murphy really set the stage for this kind of juror to exist in Survivor because after him we have a slew of jurors who followed suit. In Survivor Cagayan, we saw Spencer Bledsoe preach to the jury about why Wu was entirely unworthy of winning and the correct way to vote was only for Tony.
I need to talk to you all. Love him or hate him, Tony played his ass off out here. When you put pen to parchment tonight, vote for the only guy sitting there that actually played this game and played it in a way that honors it.
However, similar to Boston Rob in Redemption Island, I gotta say, Tony really had that win in the bag the moment Wu voted out Cass at the final 3, so I can't say Spencer probably changed a single vote with his rant. We saw Jeremy in the next season, San Juan del Sur, basically tell everyone that Natalie deserved the win. She balled out and you just gotta give it to her. There's no one else. I mean, legit, there is no one else. Give it to the 20, you fools. And then we saw it in the next season, Worlds Apart, when Jen Brown stood up and again straight up told the jury they were all bitter bitches and Mike deserved the win way more than Carolyn or Will. End of story. Again, as per usual, I highly doubt she influenced even a single vote on that jury. But hey, talk your piece, girl. I hear ya.
Half of you are the most bitter people I've ever met in my life. Mike is the only person that outwitted, outplayed, and outlasted. The other two might have done one of those things, but that's not the rules of Survivor. And you guys say that you're super fans? Well, if you're a fan, then you're actually gonna vote for who deserves it. Get over it. Prove that you're a fan.
And then I think the final true, without a doubt, half Murphy that I can recall happened by Chris from Survivor Millennials vs. Generation X when he stood up, revealed he was actually an attorney, and then pitched to the jury why Adam deserved to win over Ken and Hannah. And yeah, he probably didn't change anyone's vote either. There are a few questionable incidences of maybe half Murphys existing, such as when Sharon talked up Mike in Worlds Apart, but then she also talked up Carolyn too, only really harping on Will's game. And the half Murphy isn't really about spreading the love, it's about setting the law. Really, for her to have this half Murphy, she should have either said you vote for Mike or you get out, as Jen put it right before her. You also had Scott from Co Wrong basically tear up Ty and then Aubrey, only to completely build up Michelle and explain to everyone why she was worthy of getting their votes. In his case, he kind of spoke more to Michelle. It wasn't a back and forth, but it was also to the jury, just not directly to them like it was with David Murphy. Scott kind of pulls more of a, I don't know, a quarter Murphy or something. An eighth Murphy, a 16th, how low can we get? Kind of like John from San Juan del Sur, who's basically just like, yo, Jacqueline, you are awesome, so let's talk about that.
Jacqueline. I want to give you the opportunity to present a big move or decision that you solely were responsible for making. And how did it affect the final 3?
So yeah, that's the half Murphy in Survivor. And it's definitely still possible in the newer iteration of the Final Tribal Council format, though probably less likely to occur given the focus is less on the jurors and more on the finalists. I'm actually surprised that the half Murphy speech hasn't happened more often over the span of like 20 years of the show running. And now, before I end the video, as for my thoughts on this half Murphy jury speech, I'm a bit 1 foot in and 1 foot out. I'm of the mind that the jury is a nebulous, ever-changing, difficult to define part of the game. Each jury is different, and each juror is unique in some way, be it minor or major. There's no defined rule for how a juror should vote, and I don't think there ever should be. Heaven forbid there ever will be, which is why I'm kind of out on this type of speech. An attempt to preach and codify how a jury should vote comes across kind of condescending, like you know better and it's your personal task to guide everyone else to the promised land. I kind of feel like it's a bit unsophisticated. It's a little too black and white for my taste. But then I will admit there are times when I get hyped when I'm rooting for someone and it's the final tribal council and a juror gets up and they're like stumping hard for the person I'm rooting for and they're like, get them that W, do it. I'm getting carried away. Overall, I think each juror should focus on their own vote and not get so caught up on what everyone else is gonna do. I really am not here for a groupthink jury session. I kind of want everyone to vote individually and, based on their own reasons, not based on how David Murphy wants you to vote. Let them define their own story and come to their own conclusion. This is a game after all, and part of what makes Survivor so compelling, and this needs to be underlined a million times, there is no one way to get the W. This isn't a game of chess. There are way more variables, and there always should be. And the half Murphy kind of goes against that.
There's really only one logical decision here.
Hopefully this works.
That's 4 votes Rob, 1 vote Philip, no votes Natalie. The winner of Survivor.
And that's a lot of words for what is ultimately known as the seldom seen half Murphy in Survivor. A very niche term, even within our niche community, but it's something I've wanted to talk about and pontificate on even for just a moment. Are you a fan of this half Murphy kind of speech? Maybe once every so often? Peridiam, I'm a fan of it only if they're rooting for the people that I'm rooting for. Either way, my name is Peridiam saying thank you for watching this random video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to vote for the right juror on the way out, and I will see you in the next one once I legitimately vote for Philip Shepard. Checkmate, David Murphy.
There's really only one logical decision here.
Hey, Philip.
There's really only one logical decision.
And I love you, man. Have a great one.
Philip, do you, after everything you've been through, have a shot at having votes in here enough to win you $1 million?
There's really only one logical.
Yeah.